Dietitian Evan here.
Puffy!
Today I want to talk to you a bit more about how much caffeine is appropriate to consume in a day.
It's a great question.
Now, this video may be a wake-up call for you and I, because I know I'm probably not the only person out there that's drank over 8 cups of coffee a day and felt the effects from that.
That's ridiculous.
Caffeine is a central nervous
Call yourself a nutritionist.
system stimulant that's found mostly in tea, coffee, and cacao plants. But nowadays it's put into food products and supplements such as pre-workout, caffeine pills, and energy drinks
Also, some chocolates now are putting caffeine in it to make it more addicting.
available on the consumer market. Caffeine is the most widely consumed psychoactive substance on the planet. So be wary that mostly you, your neighbor, your family, most people are consuming some form of caffeine on a regular basis. Now, your caffeine sensitivity can depend on a variety of factors, such as your body weight, the medications you take daily, your overall health condition.
So it's important to note if you have a health condition to obviously be incredibly wary about the amount of caffeine you take. Also, if you're on blood pressure medication, be wary. Also, if you have a high heart rate, be careful of that. In my opinion, your body weight doesn't really matter how much caffeine you're intaking. I mean, it's the same thing with alcohol. Obviously, the less weight you are, the easier you are to like get drunk, or say vice versa with the caffeine. But which you'll touch on in a minute, you don't want to exceed like half a gram, which is like 500 milligrams.
And your genetic makeup. So when we say too much, that can vary from person to person depending on those factors.
Yeah, like for example, with me, I have ADHD. It's notorious for a lot of people with ADHD. They're incredibly low tolerant or high tolerant to caffeine. I've had a gram of caffeine in a day, and I was able to sleep that night. I had no jitters. Like, I can chug an energy drink, my hand don't shake. But most people have huge issues with that. The one thing I'll touch on in a sec is timing of caffeine.
According to the FDA, most people can consume up to 400 milligrams of caffeine daily.
I would say 4 or 5, yeah.
Which is roughly 2 to 4 8-ounce cups of coffee. Once we're exceeding...
It's not 2 to 4. It's basically for every one medium coffee, it's about 100 grams of caffeine. So it's pretty much like 4 cups of coffee, which is a significant amount.
Eating 600 milligrams of caffeine daily, that's when we can run into some issues. I want people to be mindful of things like headaches, irritability, you have insomnia.
Okay, so what he doesn't touch on in this video is like time sensitivity and timing or consumption of caffeine. So headaches, I've never experienced that. Irritability, personally, I've never experienced that. Fast heart rate, no shit, because you're using caffeine. That's one of the things they use in pre-workouts to get you going, etc. All this other stuff, not much. Urination, that's not a bad thing. Your process, it's just getting flushed through your liver, so it needs to be processed a lot quicker. Insomnia, that's the biggest thing I want to touch on. So caffeine consumption or caffeine timing, right? If you're watching this and you're taking a pre-workout and you're going to the gym beyond 2 o'clock and your pre-workout has a significant amount of caffeine in it, and most of them are going to have at least 150 milligrams of caffeine. Try to avoid that. And the reason why is that's going to completely fuck with your sleep. Caffeine stays into your system, in your bloodstream, for over 12 hours. So for me, I work out in the morning. I pretty much always have a pre-workout. And sometimes after the workout, if I go super, super hard, 3-4 hours later, I have an energy drink at about 12 or 1 o'clock. So by the time I go to sleep at like 10 or 11, it's not really in my system that much. And I've seen a huge difference if I have an energy drink at like 4 o'clock and I try to go to sleep, it's still in my system, right? So be very wary of that.
Nervousness, fast heartbeat, muscle tremors, frequent urination. Any and all of these can be signs that you're consuming too much caffeine.
Or you have anxiety.
I want to recommend consuming caffeine within the recommended amount of 400 milligrams a day in order to reach your peak performance and get that extra bit of pep in your step.
Well, I wouldn't go near this. You don't need 400 fucking milligrams in a day. Look, the only times you really need, and I'm not saying to not have coffee. Have 2 cups of coffee a day. That's plentiful. If you're waking up at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., have a cup of coffee and then have one at like 11 or 12. You don't need any more than that. With the pre-workout, have the pre-workout, but you don't need to consume any more caffeine in that day. Or if you absolutely must, have the pre-workout, and then a couple hours later, have a cup of coffee or have some tea, right? And that's the other thing. Tea also has caffeine. I mean, it depends on the type. I'm not super in-depth and knowledgeable about the tea, but it is something to be considered about. Ooh, it's at night. I'm gonna have a cup of tea. No, it has caffeine, so just be wary of that. It can fuck with your sleep.